agenda item is, agenda item
H.
H.
Yeah, we did H.
Okay.
I apologize, I keep taking bites of food right before we reconvene. Okay, agenda item H is discuss and possible action on CCR section 2620.5. So for this one, I'd like to present it just following along the history denoted in the cover page, just to do a brief summary of how we've gotten to today, because it's been an ongoing discussion. So we'll start in 2009. LAAB released changes to its accreditation standards. And so at that time, the committee made proposed amendments to CCR 20.5 to reflect those changes. And at its December 2010 meeting, the board approved those changes. Thereafter, in 2012, the committee submitted to the Office of Administrative Law the proposal to amend CCR 2620.5. Thereafter, in 2013, OAL issued a decision of disapproval of regulatory action, basically rejecting the proposed changes, and some of the disapproval reason was lack of justification. And by the way, that language that was submitted to OAL and denied in 2013 is attachment 1, and attachment 2 is OAL's notice of denial. So, to kind of regroup, in August 2013, the LAPC voted to not pursue resubmission of this language. Half staff analyzed the proposed modifications and attempt to provide sufficient justification, and then thereby submit a new regulatory package to OAL. So, with these marching orders, staff, a task force that was developed, and legal counsel got together and started looking at what needed to be done for these rate changes. And at that time identified that actually new sections might be needed to address application process, annual reporting requirements, denial, and appeal process. And so with those discussions, proposed sections 2620.2, 2620.3, and 2620.4 were brought forth to the committee. And then also in that same proposal, there were new amendments made to 2620.5. So those are encapsulated in H.3, or rather attachment 3. This new proposed language was attachment 3, was presented to the committee in 2015. The result of this discussion, the committee wanted a kind of another working group to take a further look at it. However, in 2016, LAAB released some updated accreditation standards, and most predominantly it featured a new smattering of coursework that really expanded the coursework requirement. In fact, it's 9 subject matter areas with 41 subcategories of study. Those new standards are encapsulated in attachment 4. And so the LAPC kind of regrouped again, made some new amendments to 2620.5 reflective of these new standards by LAAB, and that is in attachment 5. And then all of this culminated in April of 2017. At that meeting, staff presented attachment 3 and attachment 5 to the committee for discussion. Resultant of the discussion, the committee moved to form a subcommittee to develop new regulation language. And however, unfortunately at that time, this was also the time where we really started the discussion of initial licensure, with them both being two high priority strategic plan objectives. Unfortunately, progress on 2620.5 kind of got halted to keep the momentum going for the initial licensure. So the brakes were kind of hit at that point. It's noteworthy that in the interim, since now, between now and April 2017, we were informed from UC Berkeley that their program is beginning the process of closing. They're closing as of fall 2019 and are no longer accepting new students. So, like I said, this issue lost momentum, so beginning early this year, we began working with legal, Patera, to kind of get the momentum going again and regroup and see how we can bring this back to the surface. We analyzed attachment 1 because it was the last approved language, so even though it was denied by OAL, this was the language that was last approved by the board and the committee. And we're hoping to kind of garner our own justification that we could present to the committee, because really that was at that time the predominant reason for it being rejected. However, we really kind of found that the language amendments kind of came partially from LAB, but also from the session, and we weren't able to foster that justification ourselves. So, altogether, with all that in mind, we're asking today that the committee take a look at all the attachments, all the history on this issue, and determine and take possible action insofar as how you'd like to proceed. We think that possible actions could include taking one of these already kind of somewhat vetted proposals. If you like it, that you could authorize staff to take it forward. Just knowing that, learning from history, we do need sufficient justification in order to do so. Or it could be that we support, or I'm sorry, that the committee moves to have a subcommittee take a look at this another time. So with that in mind, I'd like to turn it over to the committee for discussion. Oh, and before I do, I'm sorry, we did receive public comment related to this item. It is, we passed it out as a handout, so that is in addition to the attachment.
I just want to clarify that OAL is the Office of Administrative Law.
Yes.
You know.
Madam Chair,
And
for Tara, I need to know whether or not I need to recuse myself, because I am the chair of the UCLA Guidance Committee for the Department of Landscape Architecture.
Yes. I believe you have in the past.
I have in the past,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
in times past, because of the makeup of the committee, I was there by rule of necessity, so now we have a full committee, so I will recuse myself. Do I need to go out of the room, or can I sit in the audience?
If you sit in the audience, please don't make any comment.
Can I hold up something?
No winking, no ear pulling.
No mean
No
mugging.
nothing.
If you want to take a break.
I'm not even allowed to sit in the room. You made me clear it for me.
Oh.
okay, so let's see. I just want to be clear. Attachment H3 is the proposed language.
No,
That's what
attachment
that is,
H, well, yes and no. So there's been several iterations. Attachment H1 is the language that was officially approved by the LAPC and the board back in 2012, but denied by Office of Administrative Law.
Right.
Attachment 3 was the attempt to regroup. So that was a proposal brought to the committee in 2015. So attachment 3 had further amendments to 2620.5, but also new proposed sections, 2620.2, .3, and .4. Then attachment 5 is proposed amendments strictly to 2620.5 that are reflective of the 2016 LAB standard changes that came about again.
Okay, so I just want to be clear on this. So would we need to approve H3 and H5, or?
No, I mean, not in a collective. What we're asking is if you have an iteration of language that the committee as a body likes and wants to move forward, and then we would require instruction on how to execute and what the reason for each of the amendments would be. Or, there's certainly last meeting there was the request for a subcommittee to go in that direction as well. So it's a number of directions, so we're just providing the gamut of everything that the committee has seen to inform the decision.
So H5 then is an updated potential language that could be used.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so,
Oh, that's good.
I'm sorry.
So I know this looks like a lot of information to absorb, and since 2013 and 2015 is the H3 version, other things have changed. with the certificate programs. The most obvious one being that we're down to one. And one of the prior problems was that there were two, Berkeley and UCLA, and they were being audited and reviewed on different standards. So it became clear to board staff that we needed to change the regulations, that it was more obvious to the certificate programs and staff what was required to receive the accreditation. Now we're down to one. We have very substantive argument in this letter, public comment, about how destructive apparently certificate programs may be to other LAAB accredited programs. So that might deserve some discussion. In addition, moving either one of these proposals forward right now is really difficult because what justification there may have been in 2013 and 2015 for each change to the regulation, we don't know. There's been turnover. There were, I think, at least 2 other attorneys working on that language, and I am unfamiliar with why that language was landed on. So perhaps it's best to go back to the current version of the regulation, take a look at the landscape of the certificate program, the one left, and hear other public comment about what may or may not be wrong with today's regulation, and start anew.
Okay. So, let's open it up for public comment.
Is there still an education subcommittee? Is there still a subcommittee that LATC has that can sit down and go through all of this? And
So, I believe it was our April of 2017 meeting was when we decided that we needed an education subcommittee. And at the time, correct me if I'm wrong, we created one to address these different pathways. And the intention was to create another one to address the whole extension program issue. And as Brianna had said, you know, the other issue kind of grew and really needed to be a higher priority. So the short answer is, we have an education committee. We can discuss if we want to use the same committee or if we want to have a committee that's composed of
so
different
this has not been vetted in an education committee? It was put on.
No, it hasn't. Yeah. So that's one of the things that we need to discuss is, you know,
Whether we go forward with this or get the education committee going and revert to that so we can have more information.
right, yeah. So, okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I agree with Tara. I think we need to start from scratch, but I also believe that we're not in the business to certify programs. We're in the business to work with candidates and licensees and in licensing individuals, not programs. So, in my perfect world, LAAB would have a mechanism to go through a process and handle extension programs and community college programs and all these wonderful programs that we desperately need. And I'd also like to say that I think the UCLA program is a model for another way of getting an education, and I believe it's really, really important for all of landscape architecture in America, and we need more of them. So, that said, I would prefer to put more pressure on LAAB to start to figure out ways to certify programs that are not large university programs in universities that they're used to.
I agree with you completely. It's just interesting because extension program is, I'm just gonna quote Stephanie Landgren. At present, California is the only state providing, this alternative educational path, addressing adult learners and providing an evening alternative to working adults. And another thing that I discovered, that I did not know, was that, this is another one that's in Stephanie's letter. California universities do not allow individuals to return for a second bachelor's degree. I had no idea. So, it's, it's interesting. This is kind of a unique, situation, a unique program. And I agree with you, that's not what we're tasked to do. However, I think that, we need to, support this program.
Yeah, I have a question, Tara. The letter we received, how does that affect how we're handling business currently? Or does it?
Well,
It's throwing a challenge out to
yeah.
the way business is being handled right now.
I mean, in effect, they're saying get rid of the certificate program so that, the LAAB accredited programs will be more successful.
Well, I guess the thing that I find kind of interesting, so I did some research on LAAB, and they only accredit four-year bachelor programs. So, and the person that wrote that letter teaches at a community college. So I'm not sure how the extension program is impacting the community college. I think we need both. So I'm just not quite sure I understand where she's coming from.
I think the question is on self-certification.
Yeah.
The terminology of self-certification, a program that's gonna self-certify itself to be equal to lab. How does that happen?
And I think a few years back now, maybe it's been, I thought Lab was considering to accredit them, and then they decided not to. So we could research that, but I think they had considered it, not in the distant, I think it was recently. But then they chose not.
Yeah, in defense of the extension certificate program, principals of very well-known firms in the LA area are running businesses in landscape architecture, and they came through this program. And so I think, here once again, I think we have a real need for different pathways for education. So I just want to make sure we're not in any legal jeopardy, if you will.
Not right now. I mean, I think this is an objection to changing, certification away from board review.
Okay.
But it's bringing up, an important piece of this because you're arguing for LAAB certification.
Right.
And that's kind of what they're arguing for too.
Okay.
It's a different program though, and, so I think that a discussion should be had about the benefits of the program versus the benefits of other LAAB accredited programs. Is there a way to accredit these certificate programs that we haven't thought of, such as, I'm trying to research this right now, it's just, one of those items off to the side a little bit. Is there a private entity that the board could contract with to provide accreditation to the program? So I think that's something we need to look at. If LAAB won't do it, and I think we probably need to do another ask there. Are there any other states attempting this now? I don't know. But there's some unanswered questions. Today, it's a different landscape. We need to take a look at everything, and figure out the best path forward that's justifiable on each amendment to the regulation. And it may get, I don't know, I think discussion is probably the best path forward right now, because you've got some very substantive questions to resolve.
I have a question. We just approved a 6-year, no education ability to qualify. Under the summary chart that you have here, basically by being accredited, you would get 2 years if you're in an accredited program. But if you look at the last one about if you're teaching under the supervision of another landscape architect, would it be appropriate to basically say any education under a licensed landscape architect is equivalent to that 1 year of experience of working in an office?
So are you saying that as far as the certificate program goes, they wouldn't require accreditation at all anymore? The individual would just be able to qualify to take the exams based upon receiving instruction at one of these programs?
Under a
Develop
landscape
program.
architect, right? If your civil doesn't count, but I'm just trying to, we're opening the pathway, we're removing barriers. This whole accreditation thing is gonna be very encompassing. So would it, in what we move forward with, would it be appropriate to say, well, we only have one, we're asking for how to certify them, but why couldn't we just add in this some language that says as long as you have so many hours under a landscape architect education,
Does that just completely remove the need for the program?
accreditation for the program?
The program? Because otherwise, couldn't you just go to work as an intern for a firm, and as long as you're receiving instruction under a landscape architect, does that qualify for the 1 year? You don't need the program anymore?
I'm
just saying,
Right, you get that anyways, but I don't think people, but one, you'd have to get hired, and there aren't, I'm just gonna say, in my opinion, there aren't a lot of positions available for those who have absolutely no experience to step into a landscape architecture office. And so I think the market helps define the need for the extension program, the community college program, these educational opportunities.
I'm not saying, we need to get rid of this stuff. I'm saying, first off, that's a different question than this is. They're related, but right now we're trying to figure out what to do about auditing, recertifying this particular program, because there's only one left. As it relates to that, I think that's a different conversation, because that's about the candidate. This is about the program.
Right, but in lieu of certifying this one program in California, but they go to school and get education and they have 1 year under a landscape architect, whether it's certified or not, could that count because you're giving them credit for 1 year or 2 years? If it mucks the water too much,
I
don't
think,
worry,
isn't
I won't
the
answer.
certificate program in there?
It says if you have a certified program, you get 2 years of credit, but it doesn't say anywhere if it is not certified, if you get any credit.
What number are you looking at?
I'm looking on, okay, so under
You get 1 year, correct?
number 7,
Number 7.
extension certificate, in the landscape extension certified program, you get 2 years.
Right.
Okay, what if it's not certified, what do you get credit for? Nothing.
Well, we don't
No.
have.
It doesn't say certified, it says extension certificate from an extension certificate program.
Yeah, but to get a certificate program, it has to be a certified, doesn't it? I'm just trying to, we're opening barriers,
Yeah.
we've just allowed all experience only. I've gone to school, I find out my program's not accredited, do I get any out of it, right? I'm trying to open
Yeah.
barriers.
Yeah, let's, Michael.
A 2-year degree, or a degree from a 2-year program, like we have at Southwestern, gives you 1 year of education credit, which means the minimum education credit for the 6 total years
Right,
that LATC requires.
yeah.
A certificate UCLA certificate program gets 2 years, I believe.
Right.
Correct.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yeah, it says 2 years, that's what it says.
And that's
You
not
get
a
4
new,
years, you get 4 years if you have a bachelor's. Oh, that's right. Yeah, no, yeah.
And that's on there.
It's okay.
Yeah, no, we don't wanna have to fight.
That was just information.
It was-
Yeah, you get 4 years, and you have a master's degree, and you get UCLA's extension certificate. You get 4 years of credit, you only have to have 2 more, and 1 has to be under landscape architect. So, I think the issue, especially with Michelle's letter that came up, was if you self-certify, if you can self-certify your program and get more educational credits from the LATC, then the community colleges want to do the same thing, because they want to self-certify and get more educational credits, which makes their program more viable, especially here in San Diego County, because we have a unique situation here with our programs here. There's only 5 other places in the United States that have a 2-year landscape community college architecture degree. And California is the only state that will allow a 2-year program. Every other state requires a 4-year program for educational requirements, except for the ones that will let you go the total experience. I know architecture, you have to have 8 years of experience under a licensed landscape architect to qualify for the ARE. In some states, I think are higher, I'm not sure. So, Mr. Tripp, yeah.
No, I'm sorry, I was gonna talk to the chair.
Oh,
You're done.
okay. I agree with Mr. Truscott, and I think most of us here do. I'm not sure, but in what we've talked about in our community colleges, yes, I believe lab needs to come in and help all of the programs. They need to come in and help. They need to structure it down and not just be stuck to the big 4-year state, big money programs, okay? They need to help us too. Well, we don't have that right now. We're hitting lab with that. We continue. So, I think the self-certification thing that raises a red flag, or it tends to raise a red flag, is who is self-certifying, who's being picked that they can self-certify, and when you can self-certify one, why not allow all of them? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and when I read Michelle's letter, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, we have another
I'm
public
sorry.
comment, no.
I was just curious, historically, because I wasn't involved coming to these meetings, what prompted this discussion here? Why? Because I agree with you, if programs like the one from UCLA are so important. Why the discussion? I don't understand that.
It's in our regulations that it has to be reviewed, I believe, every 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
Every 6 years.
Every 6 years.
And
So
then
that's-
it would review and it didn't pass. That's what it is.
Well, so Brianna was giving you the whole history. I mean, in the process of LATC coming up with language to update it, then LAAB updated their guidelines. And so we've kind of always been in this catch-up situation.
But LAAD only certifies 4-year programs, so it will not apply to a 2-year program, correct?
It wouldn't apply to a 2-year program, but they have talked about certifying the extension program. They haven't, but I think what we've been trying to do is to follow those guidelines that LAAB has and apply them, so to speak, to the extension program.
And to answer some of your questions too, what was the impetus for all of this? We did a lot of research, because as you saw with the presentation of the cover sheet, it's gone before the committee quite a few times, and it's been kind of an ongoing process of updating the reg. From what we can tell, looking back at the history of it, because it has gone back several years, it does appear that some of the impetus for change was that in reviewing the extension program, there was the need for review procedures for the site inspection team. But kind of to what Patricia said as well, it's also keeping up with the LAAB. So it's kind of just this jigsawing of separate needs to update the regs. From what we can tell, that started this process. Process is what I was trying to say.
It's a problem.
No, it's a process.
And is that the reason why Berkeley closed their program, was no longer going to offer offer the program there?
I really don't know why they closed. Usually the reasons are money tends to enter into.
Because I know that the program, the extension program at UCLA is excellent, and it gives another option for people. And like you said, at the time that you're trying to open more pathways,
Right.
it just offers a wonderful pathway.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I'm recommending that, well, firstly, I'd like to state that I don't believe that self-certification is really defensible, and I think we're getting indication that may be the case. So I'm gonna recommend that we request and press LAAB, continually, and as firmly as we can, to consider and to add certification for our extension programs and our community college programs, and then we direct staff to research appropriate parties, private parties, to conduct our certification of these programs. And we need to find out if there are parties that can really do it.
Yeah.
And I'd like to have that information brought back to us, and we can discuss maybe the mechanics of it after we get some answers back.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that a motion?
It's a recommendation. I don't think it's something we need to vote on, but it's my recommendation for how we handle this at this point.
And, you know, once we have a little more research and some communication with LAAB, then we can, you know, develop a subcommittee to discuss it more. I just want to go on the record and say that, you know, if the extension program can self-certify, I think the community colleges should be able to self-certify as well, so,
I would agree with that.
yeah.
I would agree, but I think it's dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, that is not what we're tasked to do.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, I think board members feel strongly about the program, that it's valuable to the profession, and we don't want it to go away, so, so I guess we're becoming the safety net to a certain degree, on this, but,
So, see, it's my understanding that, that things just proceed as they are right now with everything that we've changed. This is something that I'm looking at staff, this is something we need to get our arms around and make some decisions in the near future, but if nothing happens in the next 6 months, we're not putting anything in jeopardy?
I believe, we extended the approval for UCLA. Courtney, do you know when it expires?
2020, so.
Yeah, we have a little.
Do we need a motion on this direction? He's making recommendations. Do we need an actual motion on this?
No,
I was directing staff.
yeah, I
Maybe the
mean,
next meeting when we bring you back. then.
Yep. unless, you know, if you want a motion for committee action, totally different, like, you know, setting up a subcommittee now.
I don't think we're really ready for that yet,
yeah, I think we need to kind of understand, you know, the particulars with regard to LAAB, and, you know, read this as perhaps we can, you know, get them to, take this on, especially if, like you were saying, Vicki, that.
I'm pretty sure they considered it in the recent, past, but we can find out for sure. So, Mark, if I understood what you, asked of staff was to do that research about the LAAB, whether or not they did consider.
to make a formal request.
Oh, to actually make the request, not find out what has happened in the recent past?
No, I'd like to have a formal request that they develop, a program to review and certify an extension program and community college programs in addition to 4-year programs.
Okay, and then was the second part of that?
Second was to have staff, research appropriate private parties that have the capability to certify the
Okay.
program. And I don't know kind of what those knowledge skill sets are to do that.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to make some calls and emails
Okay.
and stuff,
And as
I've
a-
gotta leave, but.
Yeah, as a fallback, if LAAB says, no, we're not gonna do that, then I would like us to have a different direction that doesn't have self-certification as the component, and it
Yeah.
doesn't have us reviewing things or
Yeah.
staff reviewing things, but it's a third party then.
So if we're not just researching, LAAD, but instead,
Oh,
on
yeah,
behalf
we need
of
a
the
formal
committee, yeah, pushing them to take action, I think you need a motion.
Okay, then I'd like
That's what I
to,
was heading towards.
thank you. Okay, then, okay, I've given staff direction, but I would like to put a motion on out that.
We have some more
Okay,
public
you
comment.
want that to
I didn't know if you closed the public hearing.
No,
Okay, I don't care.
Public input.
Rich?
Just curious about your direction, does that also include private colleges and/or any state college facilities as opposed to Cal State facilities?
Yes, thank you for the tip. And because I believe that we need to have that they have the skill set to create certification programs for all different types of.
Yeah, the way you worded it was pretty specific as to university,
Good thing I didn't put that out.
Yeah,
so.
because we have two-year programs in our area, but they're like extension, they don't count a whole lot, and so I would want to make sure that we have an equal opportunity. Private schools, public schools, anybody that has some level of, based on our criteria.
Right.
You know,
Just a little bit of input, a lot of schools will not provide financial aid unless you have some type of state certification. Even private ones want to have some kind of acknowledgement that you've risen to whatever that level is. And if that goes away, you're basically, LATC will, I hate to say it, kill a lot of these programs that are struggling to move forward. So, consider that, you
well, I
know.
don't think that's the intent.
No, I know it's not the
figure out
intent,
a
but it's
strategy.
it's the fallout.
Yeah.
That's
No,
all
I
I'm
understand that.
I'm saying.
I
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
I'm not looking to have fallout.
Yeah.
I'm looking to have a firmer way that does not include our staff or us to certify.
But if you get rid of state certification, you could get rid of the financial
No, I
aid
understand
component.
that.
Yeah.
Well, it could be, step away from
Certification to instead be approved, committee or board approved accredited program, accredited by LAAD or some third party.
It's the vernacular,
Yep.
the educational institutions use all these, like you were saying, Mark, all these terminology. We've got to find the one that resonates with them so that they don't just say, okay, you're not certified, therefore we're not going to provide financial aid for the students who are going through the program. Or, here's another competing program. Well, they have certification from the state or from whomever. Well, maybe we can get rid of landscape architecture because enough people are not filling those seats. And that's the concern that we always have, or that we've been having.
I'm sorry.
Randy.
Oh, that was,
Madam Chair, at this point, I'm not comfortable making any motion, so I'm just gonna direct staff to please inquire about or gently
correspond with
LAAB, hey, by the way, as opposed to a formal request.
I think what I heard you say though is for us to make a motion to then talk to LAAB, right, don't we still need that motion?
Okay. So if we're researching to find out
Research.
what they're currently doing for programs across the nation, if they'd be willing to certify this program at this point, that's
That's
research.
what I'm looking, that's exactly what I'm looking for at this point.
Yeah, and, before it was if we needed to press LAAB to provide accreditation, that's more of the board has, taken a position on this and they want LAAB to do something.
At my point, at this
Rephrased,
point.
now we're just getting information.
At this point, I think it might be premature to press until we get a little more data and understand.
I would actually want to press.
Okay.
I
Well,
agree
then
with
you can put the
everything
motion
you
out
said.
there.
He has his hand up too, so.
Well, I think, I don't know how the LAAB was asked previously, but I think that part of the research should be looking into their mission and finding ways to say, this is what you say you're doing, but yet you're only doing it for like a 4-year. You should really, if you're gonna be doing what your mission says, just find leverage
Yeah.
in their own organization to say, you should be doing this, why not? or really complete.
So does that go to research only then, or do we, I'm just trying to figure out to make sure we move forward, that I wanna press them to get this, you know, how do we get certified? We don't wanna do it ourselves, why aren't you guys doing it? So I just wanna make sure that we give you enough direction, whether it's a recommendation or a motion.
Okay, we got one more public comment.
Instead of LATC getting involved right this moment with a motion, in order to get the information, how about if we start, those of us on the outside start a grassroots type of committee, form a committee amongst ourselves or the ASLA chapter, several chapters, get a committee together, that we can start pressing now, and we can start asking questions and maybe bring some information back to you. Is that something that's viable, or don't muddy the waters, or?
Well, if you look at the cover sheet for LAAB, it has the American Society of Landscape Architects as the address of where they're located.
Yeah, so, okay, thank you.
So my recommendation is just to research it.
Is the
Okay.
LAAB, aren't they governed by the trustees?
I believe they are.
So that's another approach too, is talking to your chapter trustees.
Okay. Sounds like we need to do some work. Okay, we'll do that. Thank you.
So, we've kind of gone round and round, so do we want to have a motion to make this more definitive and push a little bit more, or do we want to keep it just kind of do research?
I would prefer a motion to push it, because otherwise we got people, you know, trying to do it on the grassroots where we have some level of authority to say, look, start figuring this out. I don't know how to make the motion, but I think we should have a motion.
My only concern is that if we just immediately start just pressing without doing some research and finding some leverage, if we can. I'm not saying we're pushing this off, I mean, this could be hopefully information gathered by our November meeting. And then we can make a motion then to say, okay, based on this information, let's get this letter put together. I'm inclined to agree with Mark.
Yeah, I definitely think we need to have this on our agenda in November, and we need to work hard at resolving this as soon as possible, so our programs feel like they have ground underneath them.
Just one. Not ready to make another motion. I don't know how to make it in.
Oh, you're wrong.
Okay. So, somebody want to grab Andy?
I'm not gonna do it.
Leave them out there.
Okay, we did that one, we did that
Tell them the
one.
meeting's adjourned.
We're down to sunset, or should we do J? Can we do J? We missed it, you chimed in, and you weren't supposed to, that's why I said, don't wink at me.
Okay, let's see, agenda item J, revisit development of the annual enforcement report using the board as a model to assess the effectiveness of consumer protection efforts.
So this is agenda item 8.1. It's basically our annual enforcement report. In past years, staff presented the annual enforcement statistics to the committee via a table displaying data from the past 5 fiscal years, as well as graphics that display data related to source complaints, complaint agent comparisons, and comparisons of pending complaints. In order to fulfill this strategic plan objective, we are proposing to transition our statistical reporting of the annual enforcement statistics to match the board's formatting, which includes tables and graphs for types of complaints received by the LATC during the current fiscal year, comparison of complaints received, closed, and pending by fiscal year, comparison of age of pending complaints by fiscal year, summary of closed complaints by fiscal year, summary of disciplinary and enforcement actions by fiscal year, and most common violations of the Act that resulted in enforcement action during the current and previous 2 fiscal years, so 3 fiscal years. At today's meeting, the committee is asked to review the proposed enforcement program report and take possible action in determining whether the provided data fulfills the strategic plan objectives. So the following pages are the data and the graphs.
said is this the way that the CAB does it?
Yes, so this is modeled after the architect's work. So the first pie chart is just for the current, the last fiscal year, 2017.
Are we being asked to approve just the formatting?
Yeah,
or-
basically just the new
So
layout.
not
of the format.
not the information that's being presented on the charts and stuff, just
It's
the
just how
actual-
it's being presented.
how it's being
yeah.
presented.
If I may interject, my understanding is that usually every summer meeting, we provide an update on enforcement data. So this one is that update, but encapsulated in the new format for the strategic plan objective. So we'd be proving that, yes, this is how we want to execute the format and fulfill that objective.
May I ask one question though about the complaints received? Do we know why there was suddenly this large increase of complaints?
So it's largely in part of, because we have started to open cases for all candidates who disclose that they've had a conviction. To just kind of do our due diligence to make sure, that the conviction isn't substantially related to the practice, and that way we have record and court documents of that.
Well, we were checking into those, but we weren't tracking it and getting credit for the work we performed. So now there's an official case opened, and then we tried to add a little footnote at the bottom, because I knew that would probably draw attention, because all of a sudden you have this big wedge of the pie. But
Yeah, it's like, whoa.
So when a candidate or a licensee answers yes to having a conviction, then we open up a LATC generated complaint and track it back.
And this is consistent with how CAD does
Yes,
theirs?
yes.
Perfect.
And so on this other page 2, it says no violation 19. That meant even if you had a conviction from somewhere else, it doesn't mean you violate our requirements, right? Is that
Right, yeah. So it's just basically that the conviction is not substantially related to the practice of landscape architecture, and it's not in violation of our act.
I just want to make sure I understood, because I saw that, whoa.
Well, what would constitute not a violation? I mean, are we talking about like DUIs and things like that, or murder?
So murder would probably be a violation, because it might be, they could be, justified to be substantially related to the practice. But, for the most part, I think most of them are like DUIs and college days, or like years past, like 15 plus years ago. So, I mean, if there's no incident since, and there doesn't seem to be a pattern for those candidates, then we consider it no violation.
And those closure types are for all of the complaints,
Right,
not just
yeah.
convictions.
Oh, okay,
No, yeah.
all right.
Yeah, they're for all complaints that
Okay.
are closed.
Okay.
So I make a motion, is that what we need, that we approve the formatting that fulfills our strategic plan objective?
I'll second.
Any additional discussion? Any comments from the public?
Roll call? Tricia Trout?
Aye.
Mark Truscott, yes. Andrew Bowden?
Aye.
Susan Landry?
Aye.
David Allen Taylor Jr.?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
And if you guys find that as you use this annually, if you want something tweaked or added, it's a little document, so you can change.
That's really nice.
Yeah, no, one of the things I recall asking a couple years ago is to track, licensed, activity versus unlicensed activity.
I think that's the next one for trends,
I would
yeah.
like to see that,
Yeah.
yeah. Good. Okay,
J.2, right?
So agenda item J.2 is to address the strategic plan objective to review data respective to unlicensed activity and licensee violations to identify if trends exist in order to shape consumer education and enhance enforcement efforts. So in order to address this strategic plan, we collected and analyzed enforcement data for the previous 4 fiscal years. So fiscal years 14-15 through 17-18. During that time, we received 76 practice-related complaints, so over the full 4 years, 76. Of those complaints, 50 were for unlicensed individuals or firms, and 26 were against licensees, which includes 10 settlement reports. The data collected was divided into 3 categories based on the type of complaint, so complaints against licensees, complaints or settlements against licensees, and then complaints alleging unlicensed activities. A summary of the findings are that for the source of licensee complaints, most frequently the complainants were the public, followed by licensees. The most common complaint allegations were for professional misconduct or negligence. We fully investigated 14 against licensee complaints, and 5 resulted in a letter of advisement, and 2 resulted in a citation. The others were no violations. Settlement reports were mostly self-reported, and all cases were for allegations of negligence in their design plan. And then for the source of complaints for unlicensed activity were most frequently from licensees, and then the public, and then those submitted anonymously. The most common complaint allegations were for advertising landscape architectural services on a website, and then followed by providing landscape architectural services. And of the fully investigated unlicensed complaints, there was 43 that were fully investigated. 27 resulted in a letter of advisement, and 6 resulted in a citation.
So how come just 27 resulted in a letter and not all 43? If there was
Because-
something that's illegal.
So it was found, the other 40, or the, what is that, the 12 or something, so it was found to be no violation. So usually it was because they did have, so it was a firm that was advertising like landscape architecture, but they usually had a landscape architect on staff, but they just weren't providing that information on the website, so it didn't appear to the public. And so basically it was they complied to, or they fixed their issue, and so they no violation. Or some of them were also for landscape contractors, so they fixed that. So there were some of that. So at today's meeting, the committee is asked to discuss the data provided in an attachment and take possible action in order to fulfill the strategic plan objectives. If you look at the graph, I did a pie chart to show the source, so the total source for the last 4 fiscal years. And then below that is a table that shows the source by fiscal year, so it breaks it down. Followed by another pie chart that shows in totality the complaint allegations, and then again broken down by fiscal year. And then I did the same for all 3 categories, so settlements and then unlicensed activities.
So the letter goes out, the 27 letters that go out. What follow-up action does those have?
So most of the letter of advisements are for unlicensed activity, and it's for the landscape designers that are maybe doing a little bit more, or they're maybe advertising landscape architecture, or a lot of times it's their LinkedIn profiles that say landscape architect because they don't have a landscape designer category. So when we notify them and they remove it, we do a letter of advisement to say, thank you for realizing that you're in violation, and thank you for taking the actions to fix that, and we verify that it's fixed. And then we just kind of give them another letter of advisement saying, in the future, please be advised that on all advertisements you cannot use these, to protect the title. So it's just kind of a reminder.
I have a question. From what I understand from talking to these guys, the only place that you have to have your license number is in a contract. You don't have to have a license number on advertising.
No, but we do verify. So if someone has their name and it says landscape architect, we look in our system to see if that person has a license.
Right, but overall, per our act, the only place that is required to show your license number right now is in a contract. You can advertise, you can have an email, you can call yourself it, but it's then on someone else to check, you or whoever. And so 21 of these are from a website. I'm having this issue with another, thing where people, it has to do with the marijuana thing, they're advertising and they're not licensed by the state. So the state has gone in and said to those advertisers, wait a minute, you have to have their license number or you can't advertise. That was kind of where I'm heading is, you know, we're having all these complaints and then why, to clarify to the consumer, it's like, oh, they're a landscape architect, license number 3160, when I can now go online, I can check it out, so.
I do believe there was a provision at one point in time in the Practice Act that did say that you had to have your license number on all written communications, business cards.
I don't recall that, but I can't say unequivocally that's the only place. I believe it is, but I can't say adamantly that that's true, a true statement.
Because that's what, when we went through this.
But we didn't really go through each code, so to say on the record, yes, that's the only place. You have?
I have not.
Neither have I, so I don't want to say on the record, yes, that's the only place. It may be, but I don't know for sure.
What about architects? Are they required to put their license number?
Just in the contract. And I believe there's a general provision, don't hold me to this, but I believe there's a general provision that they need to post the license in a conspicuous place, like at their office. But not.
Yeah.
I don't think we have that requirement.
I think
Oh, I
we
thought
have
there was one.
There's one that says you can adopt regs to require it, but you don't have regs, but,
Okay.
yeah. Contractors have to put it on their vehicles and
Right,
advertising. I know at one time, the board entertained it, and they felt it lowered the professionalism of the practice, the postal license.
Lowered?
Lowered it, yeah. I may be putting it in my words, but that they felt that if you call yourself an architect, you're held to a standard to be an architect, that's all you really need because the title's protected. Just like landscape architecture, your title is protected.
So I'm going to the consumer, and I go online, they say they're a landscape architect, unless I file a complaint, I can just assume that they are, unless I, you know, and if I don't have the license number, so it's kind of a bigger picture of, with tech, social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, and all these things, it's also how they categorize you. They didn't have a landscape design category, so by default, they probably ended up there. So
I think isn't it LinkedIn, Stacy, that they don't have a landscape architect, or landscape designer
right.
category, so yeah, maybe by default they're doing that, so.
I think that's mostly the case, which is.
Maybe we could, because the objective is to look at the trends to see if there's some form of consumer education that you can improve on. So maybe it could be to work with the websites to see if they can make sure they have those categories. And maybe, I think some professions do this where they won't let them post unless they can demonstrate they have a license. So we could maybe research into that a little bit more.
That was
And this is
what I was,
something
the
we
point
can
I was making is.
discuss more at the
Okay, yeah, okay.
strategic meeting. We'll get on that. Okay, any other comments from the public?
Mary?
I'm sorry.
Quick question. The, consumer guide, where is that these days? Isn't that something that's supposed to be republished?
It's been approved. And they're waiting to publish it until they transition to the new website because it's gonna change all the links to the address of it, yeah, so they didn't wanna post it and have it all change, yeah, not work. Cause I believe, legal had us add the whole address of those links, right, into the guide, so.
Yes.
Instead of it just
I was
being.
very excited that it was ready to go, and I realized we were transitioning website, and I realized that the URLs would need to be changed. So when the website goes live in August, we are very hopeful and don't see why that would be able to go live.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, any other comments? No? Okay, then, agenda item K.
J3.
Excuse me, J3. Research the possibility of enhancing the statutory mandatory written contract requirements to include a consumer notification to enhance consumer education.
Yes, so this is another strategic plan objective that we have. It's another one that we are modeling after what the board is doing. The board has been pursuing this effort for a little bit of time, and the history of that is delineated on this cover sheet. But in 2016, they approved proposed language. That was then in 2017 provided for inclusion on an omnibus bill. However, unfortunately at that time it was not going to be included on the bill, and the board was advised to consider including it in the new issues section of the Sunset Review Report, to thereby include it on the Sunset Bill. So that is the route the board is going to pursue to update their written contract. And by the way, the reason that the board is doing it is largely because they feel that the updates that they're making improve protection supported to consumers and architects by ensuring both parties understand cost, schedule, and compensation for the project. So, in keeping with our strat plan objective, we want to move forward with it as well. We've looked at what amendments the board is proposing to their written contract requirement statute, and have attempted to include it in our own, which is Business and Professions Code 5616. Currently, that code requires that a landscape architect's contract describes the services to be provided by the landscape architect, describes the basis of compensation and method of payment, notify clients that landscape architects are licensed by the state of California, identify name, address, and license number, and the name and address of the client as well. Describe the procedure to accommodate services, and describe the procedure to be used by both parties to terminate the contract. So that's what's existing. In the proposed language, which is included in the first attachment, is attachment J.3.1, the amendments that we're proposing to mirror those of the board are to include a description of the project, the project address, description of the procedure to accommodate contract changes, and a statement identifying the ownership and use of instruments of service prepared by the landscape architect. So like I said, these are shown in attachment J.3.1, the proposed amendments to the language. And then additionally, in keeping in step with the route that the board is seeking to do to implement these changes, we recommend that should the committee approve of these changes and recommend approval to the board, that we would include it in our new issue section of the Sunset Review Report to thereby come on to the Sunset Bill. So, today the committee is asked to review these proposed amendments and take possible action.
Okay, I'd like to open this up for discussion.
I agree with everything here, but I would like to add one more topic. Is nowhere in anything does it say that the person signing the contract owns the land and/or has the legal right to improve property. And this came up where a site manager hires somebody to do work, and then they're under construction, and the owner comes out and says, you don't have a legal right to change my property. So it says who owns the document. I have a legal right to own my document. It doesn't say, though, that that person signing has a legal authority to deal with that property.
Sounds like a Karen comment.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was looking up a couple items from your code.
Okay, so we're adding these language, you have a right to the documents, all this stuff, but nowhere does it say the person signing or the person who signs your contract owns and/or has the legal right to construct the work described in your contract. And it came up because not me, but someone had the guy who's managing the site signed a contract, they started work, and the owner came out and said, I didn't give them authority to sign that contract, they don't have a right to improve my property or change landscape.
So I'm confused. The owner signs the contract, or is it a third party who's managing the property and signing the contract?
Yeah, how do you know?
Is that a common problem?
it came up, that's why I, had brought this up, is that they basically, the owner was screaming and yelling, threatening lawsuit, and you're sitting there, but I have a contract signed, and how do you check who, if they have legal authority to use that, do something on the property?
I've never had that come up, Andy.
No, I've never had that come up either, but
No, I don't, I mean, it'd be pretty onerous then
Yeah.
to have to go do all the research to know if your person that you're working with is truly authorized to sign a document. It's pretty onerous.
It's just a statement in the contract that you're signing, that this, I added it to mine, and it just basically says the person signing this has the, is either the owner or has legal authority to do the work on that project.
yeah, we have that provision in our contract,
Right, so I'm
in our
just,
standard contract.
right, so if we're adding all these provisions in
But I
here
mean, that
that-
wouldn't stop a landscape architect from putting that in their contract if they wanted it. So
Right.
should it be
Clearly,
forced
this
as a
is,
requirement?
Yeah.
That's
I
what I'm
guess.
That's my question.
We'd have to be able to justify that it's a problem, that
Yeah.
there's, you know, issues behind it. I mean,
If you don't think
If
it's a
it-
problem,
but
I'm
if
just,
it's
it came up.
yeah, if it's a
Well,
problem.
all right, so the way I see it is, that's a provision that protects the architect, not the consumer.
Mhm.
And our duty is to protect the consumer. That's the number one goal.
Valid yourself.
If architects are really having a lot of trouble that people are entering into contracts and they have no legal authority to do so with respect to a particular property.
Okay, it came up, so I thought that was the time to bring it up, because we're talking about who owns the drawing, right?
Right.
I agree about the consumer, so, okay.
So what is the procedure? Are we trying to come up with a motion to say that we approve what has been presented?
Yeah.
And that
Okay.
you want it to be, a new issue in section 11 of the Sunset Report to, because by putting it in that section, you're asking for the legislature's help to get this into law. And it helps if they agree with it, then you have a little more, weight behind it when you go to get an offer for a bill, or they might even put it in the bill to extend the sunset date. They might offer to put it in on it for you. And we're doing the same on ours, just letting you know.
Okay.
Yes, Andy?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the language as presented in attachment J.3 for the possibility of enhancing the statutory written contract requirements to include consumer notification to enhance consumer education with the addition of the highlighted items as noted in the handout.
Second.
Any additional comments, public comments? Yes.
Will sample contracts be, with this new language, be available through, like, LATC or, I mean,
I don't believe that LATC provides sample contracts. ASLA provides sample contracts that you might.
any of our entities that are dealing with landscape architecture contracts, I just wanna make sure that, not only for insurance purposes, but for public safety and welfare, that the architect is, covered with liability as well as the client, so that's why I'm asking.
Sure, I think the LATC would not be the provider of the contract.
No, I
We're just saying-
understand that.
We're just saying what the requirements that would need to be included in a contract.
Right, exactly. That's what I
Which
was
is actually the stamp for the contract.
Right,
Yeah,
and I'm saying no.
This new language was only updated this.
Right.
And how else, here's a question, how else do we notify the licensed landscape architect that this now,
If it were to go into law, we can send out an announcement, we can include it with
Typically
renewals,
do.
we could, do our regular
Yeah.
broadcasting it out.
Thank you.
Yep. Roll call?
Yes, please.
Patricia Trout,
Aye.
Mark Truscott, yes. Andy Bowden,
Aye.
Susan Landry.
Aye.
David Allen Taylor Jr.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Patricia, I don't mean to belabor this, but can we go back to J2, because that was a draft plan objective, and, if you feel that the trends either don't dictate any change to our consumer education, or if you want us to research on LinkedIn, if we could get them to add a landscape designer category, or maybe find out maybe there's other boards where they've worked with the websites to require a license number before someone can post on their website. Maybe do a little more research in that regard. Because it seems like that's where there's a big chunk of complaints coming in, where consumers maybe don't know about the license, they think they're licensed, they see these websites, and then they get far into their project and then realize they're not licensed, and then problems, may occur. So maybe if we could beef up the consumer education on that, that might help in that category. I don't know about the other categories, but I'm trying to make a stab at doing something, to address this objective.
Okay.
Yes, please. Do we need a motion if we're directing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because it's in response to closing out this objective.
Right.
Yes.
It's not a question, it's a suggestion.
Yes.
At a time of social media, I think it's important that LATC put pressure on these platforms that have boxes for you to check. What are you? I don't want to use names here, but there are several that they make no differentiation between a landscape designer and a landscape architect, and you're forced into putting your check mark, and it is putting you in the same category when you, as a professional, you're not the same. The consumers, they don't know, they don't understand, and it's very confusing. I myself have tried to ask them to add that, and they don't seem to want to do that. And so maybe if it comes from an LATC, it will have more weight. And so I think there'll be less time for everybody. It will be less time for LATC to be sending letters of cease and desist, and it will be better for the public, and it will just help everybody. Because APLD has asked, and there is no desire for them to change. And what they say is, no, we don't have that, we don't make that differentiation. But we, as professionals, we know the difference.
Okay, well, that's certainly,
It's difficult for a state agency to tell a private actor, third party, what to do about its licensees. So, we could make a request, but there's nothing we can do in regulation or statute.
No, we're not
Yeah.
suggesting that, it's just to make the request, that it's
Okay.
causing
Yeah.
confusion,
Because
and they're...
it comes with a letter, with a letterhead of LATC to one of these platforms with a suggestion. It's just a suggestion to ask, because I'm telling you, as a consumer, because I'm a professional, I don't have a way to say, this is what I do, as opposed to...
Some of them, it's almost like you have to check other.
There's...
But they don't want that.
Yeah.
Because they want you to put in one category.
Right.
So, are you an interior designer? Are you a builder?
Yeah.
No, I'm a landscape designer. That's
So
what I wanna check.
you're forced where you make a decision, I don't get listed on that website, so I stay in compliance, or I check a box that's gonna make me in violation of the law, because it does say landscape architect on those websites. So some are choosing to check that box, and then they're in violation of the way the law's written.
But I am telling you, it's not one, it is several. I got into a huge fight with one of them, and I said, I don't want you to list me, because you can get me into a lot of trouble.
right, okay. So, we get it. Is there some other comments here?
I wasn't sure where you were going, but that, Who Can Practice Landscape Architecture publication that's on the website, that's been the easiest thing to distribute and put up on the CCHLA website, because it's just straightforward. Who can practice landscape architecture, architect, all the way down. And then, I'm trying to remember his name. One of our Southern California members, actually for legislative meetings, put together a really great comparison. I'll send that to you, because it's pretty straightforward, but it's really great for a legislator or a consumer. And it might be something you could just save and use if you have it.
Okay. Okay, so, can I get a motion from someone? The first thing I'm thinking of is, you know, some of the social media, because they are kind of encouraging illegal activities.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think a letter would be appropriate. And is there anything else that we want to have staff do?
Wash my car?
We're
asking.
See, it's always how to word the motion, right?
Someone wants to make a
How to
motion?
word the motion.
We're running out of gas here.
Yeah.
Mark, come up with a
Come on,
motion.
Mark.
Okay, I move that we request for staff to make requests to social media platforms to add a landscape designer option as a professional vocation.
I'll second.
Any additional discussion?
Is it limited just to social media? Because like in some of the newspapers, they put you in categories, where do you want to advertise? Am I a contractor, am I a designer?
Maybe we could start.
Yeah, we're
Okay, yeah, okay, I don't want to
Yeah.
Write every newspaper
I'm
the
just
same.
double checking.
Because LinkedIn, I agree, but because LinkedIn, let's see, this is where the trend is, so that is my motion. And it was seconded.
Okay. No additional discussion from what I can tell, anything from the public? Okay, roll call.
Tricia Traub,
Aye.
Mark Truscott, yes, Andy Bowden,
Aye.
Susan Landry,
I,
David Allen Taylor
Aye.
Jr., yes. Passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Okay, agenda item K.
Okay,
Save the best for last.
Oh, yeah.
try to make my intro to this quick. As we expressed in May, the Sunset Review Report is due to the legislature in December. We have, as you're aware, presented our draft responses to the Sunset Review questions on a few occasions leading up till now. Notably, the draft that we were using leading up to now was the 2017 template of the report. Just forecasting that the 2018 template would be a whole lot different, and so what you all saw when you first saw this in May was responses to the 2017 report. We collected your review and feedback and then presented it to the board's executive committee on May 16th, and then collected review and feedback from there, and then integrated it to the report and presented the same 2017 iteration of the report to the board on June 2013, and collected review and feedback there as well. So we've been integrating these amendments to the report. On June 29th, we were very pleased that the 2018 iteration was released, and so taking all of our responses and the edits to the responses, we transposed them to the new 2018 report. The 2018 report did notably include 3 new questions, all of them in section 4, which is the licensing section, so these were not previously reviewed by the committee. And so what we're asking the committee today with regard to the body of the report is to provide your review and feedback, and we are asking for possible action to approve the report because the report will be provided to the board along with the board's report at their meeting on September 12th for their review and approval as well, and at that time they, should they approve, they would be asked to delegate authority to the board president, the executive officer, and the vice president to make any changes to the report prior to its submission in December. A review hearing will likely be held in March 2019, but you know, like I said, today we're asking that the committee review and approve the report, and as part and parcel of that review and discussion, we have included in the attachment the administrative procedure manual provided to members in review of the report. We've noted that in section 12, which is the attachment, it requests the inclusion review of the LAPC manual, we noted that it was last updated in 2001. So what you have included in the attachment is this last approved and updated iteration. And so the board is also going through their own manual to update it as well. So what we'd like to do is follow step, take the boards and model ours after theirs. And with the aim of presenting it to the board at their September 12th meeting for their review and approval there as well. What we do ask is with this process, it could be the existing working group delegated for the sunset review report, or it could be if the committee wants to delegate a new working group specific to the manual, so we ask for the assistance with that as well. So with all that in mind, what's included in this section is all 12 sections of the report, including the Administrative Procedures Manual. We've separated them out just for ease of reference, and we're asking the committee to review, provide feedback, and take possible action approving it. So we can do this one of two ways. I know in May I went through section by section. I can certainly do that as well. Or if you all just want to kind of point out some things that you pick up in totality of the report, I'm happy to present it either way.
Okay. Since, well, first of all, I'd just like to hear from other committee members. Would you like to go through each section, or do you want to just make comments? Okay.
Just
I'd like to make comments.
Okay. Okay.
That's not so much that, because I think that's probably the most expedient way to
Okay.
handle this at this point.
Very good.
If I could just make or ask a question, Brianna, are all the tables now completely filled out with the information?
Thank you for that note. So we did exclude some budget information because we're still crunching those numbers, so to speak. We don't have the handouts today. With every effort, I'm unable to bring that. So Vicki, how would you like to?
So, I received the final figures for the budget component yesterday, and I want to really look over those before I plug anything in. But what it looks like, just as a quick glance, is in the last landscape sunset report for 2014, we said that you spent approximately 26% in enforcement, 31% in exams, 20% in licensing, and 7% in administration. I think it's going to be real close to that for this next report, but I don't want to, officially say that because we haven't had the figures long enough, to really look that over. And that's pretty in line with the boards. The boards is a little higher on enforcement, a little higher in exams. So I think it's going to be real close to what you previously reported, and I apologize, that we didn't have it for you today, but we will work on that. I think maybe for the record, Brianna, you ought to tell them which questions under licensing are new that you didn't, that weren't in the report last time that we had. I know one of them related to continuing education, which wouldn't apply.
Right.
But do you know offhand which ones those were?
I do. I did notice them last night.
So it's section 4, right?
Yes, section 4, which is attachment 5. Give everyone a chance to flip to it. First one is on page 2 of section 4, number 21. This is a new question altogether. How many licenses or registrations has the LAPC denied over the past 4 years based on criminal history that was determined to be substantially related to qualifications, functions, or duties of the profession? Pursuant to Business and Professional Code 480, the answer is none. So that was the one.
So you had no denials in the past 4 fiscal years that related to criminal history.
Right. Right. So then we also have on page 5, portions of 22A, again, denial of licenses based on an applicant's failure to disclose information, including criminal history. So for this again, we reported that during the past 4 fiscal years, LAPC has not denied any licenses based on criminal history or failure to disclose this history. And then, as Vicki mentioned, on page 13, there is an additional item related to CE under question 33, and of course we don't offer continuing education, so it was a non-applicable response from us there as well.
And then the other difference from what it looked like before, when you looked at it, that it's in here now, under section 11, we added the written contract proposed legislation, like you said, on that other agenda item. So you have the enhanced pathways is one new issue, and then the written contract, as the other new issue. I think our board is only gonna have one new issue, and I think it's the written contract.
So getting back to my original question, so all the other tabulation or all the other tables that are in this document, short of the budget, those are all complete?
Yes, because of fiscal year end, happening in
Everything is
June
great.
30th, yes, we were able to get all of that data.
Well, I think the document looks great.
Yeah.
Kind of what
Great
you were
job.
saying about the two that's gonna be updated in here now, or because we just approved the contract?
The contract or the budget information?
I'm sorry. Your comment was because of
Oh,
what.
the written contract
Right.
language, yeah,
Okay.
that's in section 11.
Right, so in section 7, online practice issues, down at the second to last paragraph, it discusses the web and all this. Do we wanna add anything in there about what we're doing, what we just decided or talked about?
You mean with regard to clause?
No, section 7, online practice issues is the topic. And down in the second to last paragraph, third line, it says, we do not guarantee accuracy, blah, 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 about the web. But we just had this whole conversation about what we're gonna do to proceed. So does that get added to this?
Well, does the last paragraph on, section 7, the board is interested in researching the feasibility of partnering with such referral websites to verify licensure for these professionals who advertise to California consumers and to remove illegal advertisements by licensees. The board will continue to focus on consumer outreach and education regarding the licensure requirements when selecting your landscape architect. Do you want to expand that?
No, I'm
a little
just
bit?
verifying that that is clear and that what we just talked about doesn't need to be added to what that says. It sounds, it does talk about that, just more of,
I think this states pretty much what
But
it is.
it's kind of broad,
Okay.
so it doesn't really pigeonhole you into something.
Okay.
Then one thing we will verify, because you took action earlier to move that regulation ahead, right, in the experience component, so we could look at how we answered that. I believe it says that because we didn't change it from the last action they took to put it on hold. So we kind of left that wording the way it was, right, Donna? What section is that in?
It's in various sections.
What?
It's in various ones.
I think that you changed it, or, I think that you changed it that, the committee expects to have it submitted to OAL
Yeah.
at the end of the year, so that's,
Yes, I think we left it alone just in
Yeah.
case you took the hold off of that red pack. I don't think we changed it to say you put a hold on it. So I think we left it so that we can modify it today after
Right.
you decided.
We modified it throughout the document whenever a reference to this issue was brought up, that, the committee was doing research into how the new pathways impacted the certification experience form, and continuing to explore this matter further and barring additional changes to 2016 anticipates submitting a regulatory proposal to Office of Administrative Law by the end of 2018.
And what we could do, if you want to approve this draft as it is, if we see something in here that, mind you, this is a lot of balls in the air, we're trying to, because a lot of things are repeated, and then we gotta make sure we change it everywhere.
Right.
But if we find something in here that doesn't coincide with your actions that you've taken, the two-person working group, I think it's Andy and Tricia, we could run it by you, say, we came across this, and then ultimately the board will give the final approval of it in September. So if you're comfortable with that, we think this is really close, but we don't wanna say, nothing's gonna be changed between now and then in case we come across something. Is that okay with you?
Yep.
So we'd need a formal approval of it and some delegation that if something were to come between now and before the board approves it, that we can work with that working group to change it.
Can Can we, also possibly extend that working group to be a part of the administrative procedures annual review as
Sure,
well?
if they're willing to do that.
Right.
Cause, in just looking at some other boards, their manual, they really have some extra information in it that I think the board would want in theirs. And then if you model yours after ours, it'll be, quite a bit of changes in there, so you might wanna include in your motion that you delegate to the working group. Because I don't think we have much time, to put it off to another meeting, because it really needs to be in the sunset report as an attachment. When we went to the training, they really stressed how if you have a manual and it's up to date, you should put in there, or at least say you're updating it. And so our goal is to try and update it before it goes to the board in September, and if you wanna tailor yours after ours, if you wanna delegate to this two-person working group, that would be helpful as well. Or if you just have us just do it, and then, we just file it with the report, and then if you wanna amend it later, you could always amend it later. I don't
Sounds
know.
like it's a smoother process if we approve it today, and then any minor changes you delegate to the working group.
I don't know how minor they would be, but.
Yeah, I think
don't
that
think it
the
would be minor.
changes to the
Manual
manual
will be-
are probably gonna be substantive.
Yeah,
It's
it will
old, it's
In
pretty
in
old.
which case, to staff,
be, yeah.
unless you've got.
Yeah,
one.
no.
So if I get this sense of what you wanna do is, you'll delegate to us to model it after CAPS,
Right.
have it go to the board, go in your report as an attachment, and then later, if you want amendments to it, you can, ask us to put on the agenda, and then you can make amendments to it, if there's parts of it that you think would be different.
So moved as a motion? Is that, if we're not to do that, can we do that?
Well, that's one of the first things I said, we're not supposed to do that.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I'd like to
Maybe-
make a motion.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna suggest maybe you split it, do the manual as one, and then the report as the next.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the draft as presented, and that any changes to the draft may be approved by the working group identified by this body, understanding that the California Architects Board will have final approval of the document.
And to be clear, can we just add draft sunset review report?
Thank you, draft sunset review report.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Any additional discussion? Any public comment? Okay.
Roll call, Tricia Trout,
Aye.
Mark Truscott, yes, Andrew Bowden,
Aye.
Susan Lambert.
Aye.
David Allen Taylor Jr.
Aye.
Carries 5-0. I'd like to make another motion.
Okay.
That staff prepares an update to the LATC Administrative Procedure Manual, modeling it after the California Architects Board manual, and delegating the opportunity for any revisions to a working group defined by this body.
I'll second.
Probably one of the word staff in there.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna bypass the working group.
Yeah,
Yeah.
staff, not
Sorry.
working group.
Unless you don't.
Delegate the responsibility of any revisions to staff, and understanding that final approval will be by the California Architects Board. Yeah, just.
My second stands.
Nice.
Any additional, comments from the public or the committee? Okay, roll.
Tricia Trout,
Aye.
Mark Truscott, yes, Sandy Bowden,
Aye.
Susan Landry,
Aye.
David Allen Taylor Jr.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, that is, that's everything on our agenda, so I'd like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Yeah, you have to say so moved.
One quick question, with the movement of the meeting earlier, is there a way to flip strategic plan and the business meeting? I cleared my whole calendar for the 15th and the 16th, and I have a meeting on the 8th. And, if you did strategic plan, I could get up there like in the middle of it, and what CCASLA wants me to do is at least be at the business meeting. So if there's a way to have strategic plan and the business meeting, that would be great. I'm just asking if it's possible.
Have it all in
Strategic-
one day?
No, strategic planning on the 8th and then your business meeting on the 9th.
Well, where that might, cause an issue is if you have things that you're completing in your business meeting that are under the plan, that would be done after you're creating a new plan. So, Brianna, is there anything left on the strategic plan that they haven't done?
Not just anything, I think I might have tackled all of it off the top of my head.
I guess we can look, if you've already fulfilled all the objectives in the plan, then it might not matter, but
You know, I mean, I don't think it'd be the end of the world if you didn't attend, maybe someone else from
I mean, I did attend the full second meeting, but it's the business meeting that I'm trying to make sure I'm there for.
Yeah. You can take a look at it and then.
Yeah.
Make a decision on it later, but with
We
the
can do this
request.
offline.
Yeah.
Do we need to, do a formal approval of motion,
the adjournment?
I made a motion.
Second. We need a second.
Second.
Okay, any additional comments? Okay.
roll call.
Yeah.
Mr. Crowe?
Aye.
Mark Huska, yes. Andrew Bowden? Susan
I'm
Wagner?
having such a
Yes.
good time, I'm trying to
You're gonna
remember.
stay, right?
Okay, aye.
Stephen Allen Taylor?
Aye.
Yes. Carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you all for coming.
Good job.
All right.